Hello and welcome to the Soho Live Spotlight. I'm Liz Farah-Hardy and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by the incredible casting director, Janis Jaffa. And Janis is amazing. She's got over 20 years of experience as a casting director and worked on so many projects, from independent films right through to really iconic TV series like things like The Bill and comedies, like Meet the Magoons and all sorts of amazing stuff, drama, comedy and the shorts, as I mentioned. So you've got and theatre, obviously, as well. And
not too much theatre.
Not too much.
You know, no.
Film's the one. I didn't say that. Wow, it's such an incredible career that you've had. For people that, are listening to this, what is your job? What does a casting director do?
Well, many things, but I suppose the most important thing is we find actors that fit the role. So what we have to do is we have to understand, certainly if you're talking about film and things like that, you have to really sort of understand the character, because your job is to realise, I suppose, the director's vision with your cast. So to understand, first of all, understand the character and also understand what they want as well. So it's to find the right actor for the role. So it goes without speaking, obviously, that they have to be able to act.
Yes.
Or maybe physically fit the role, but sometimes that's just not important. But it's about what's inside, and it's about finding that kind of connection, that fit. In an ideal world, sometimes it's just about money, but that's a different.
So what's that when it's just is that?
Well,
like
if people are sort of looking for famous faces to for sales or to launch their project, then sometimes you find yourself doing sort of wish lists of maybe a bit more sort of famous stunt casting, as we call it. So
And so, how do you work with a director?
Well, it depends on the director. It depends on who the director is for a start. So sometimes you have a much more sort of collaborative experience because you have the same vision, because I can really get them. I understand which way they work. And sometimes it's less collaborative because you're there to really give them what they need. It's their film by then. The writer or director or whatever has handed their vision over to them, and it's up to me to as I said before, help me realise that. So sometimes it's more of a together thing, or sometimes people are much more how can I explain it? Well, not so collaborative. I think that's
right.
Right. Yeah.
And at what point do you get involved?
Well, it depends on the project. So often, mostly, be it a film or television or even a commercial, you're involved once it's happening. So you're sent the film that may have a budget already, so you know what the budget is, you know what you're working with. Occasionally, you'll be asked to get involved before that. You'll be asked to get involved with maybe, let's talk about short films, with the project, so that you can help the people, the production, raise money with your cast. But they're really tall orders. That's quite a hard call. So you have to really be in love with the project and willing to work for very little at that point if you're working for a project that has no budget.
And I can imagine that's quite a lot in the independent films.
Yeah. Which is why a lot of people cast their films themselves.
Yes, and that, obviously here at the festival we watch lots and lots of films that get sent through, and so often you watch something, you think the script was brilliant, they've put loads of the shots are amazing, that works. Why did you cast that person? And it's kind of like, because that, I think Scorsese said it's 85 to 90% of the film. If the cast doesn't work, everything else falls apart. What's your thoughts on that? Because I know with so many independent filmmakers who...
Are people casting their own films? What's my thought on that?
Well, when there's a tight budget and people go, well, I should save money with that, what do you think?
I think... that's fine. I don't think you do need a casting director necessarily, but you do need to be able to understand what you're looking for, kind of not be lazy, think, that person will do, and kind of get it. And if you... So, I do... teaching, for a better word, or workshops, whatever, at London Film School and at Met Film School, I'll run days with young filmmakers.
Right.
When I say young, I mean new filmmakers, not
Yes.
necessarily young. And we will talk about the casting process, and it always amazes me how much they hadn't thought about it.
Right.
I think how they sort of thought, oh, well, you know a few actors in their 20s or in their 30s, and that's what casting is, It's sort of, and of course it's it's not brain surgery, but it's a little bit more sort of complicated than that. And I think that once you understand that, and you understand when you're watching films or the theatre or television or whatever, you start developing a taste for actors. You think, well, I like that actor's performance. Why do I like them? And it's more about why do I like them in that role. Once you start understanding that, then you can cast things yourself. I mean, it's obviously much easier if you've got casting directors because we have the connections, we know people, we have the sort of language that goes with it. But you don't necessarily need one. But what you can't do is make do.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's what I've seen when you the films and you just think, oh.
Yeah, you just can't. You can't do that because it's glaring.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not just about whether you have a good actor or not good actor. It's more about, again, coming back, does that person fit the role? So it could be physical. It could be that you've got you've got somebody like me as the mum. And actually, in reality, I do have a blonde daughter. But if it was a two-hander in a short film and my daughter was, white blonde with blue eyes, it's sort of, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because already you're standing outside and you're thinking, oh, she doesn't look like her mum. So it could be simple things like that, or it could be age-related, that people are continue to write scripts for, maybe very old people or maybe very young people, and you're setting yourself a difficult task then. Sometimes if you're doing a short film that you haven't got a budget, it's sometimes, so you need to think about it really, rather than wait, at 3:00 in the morning, have these amazing ideas, and you realise that you do have to realise them. Yeah.
No, totally. That makes total sense. And where do you find talent?
Where do I find talent? Well, I suppose in the old days, pre-lockdown, it was, in olden times, it was the theatre.
Right.
But I think with the sort of advent of everyone having show reels and things like that, now you don't. The theatre's a really good place to find talent, but actually you can find talent in lots of places now. You can watch people's show reels all day and all night should you want, because everyone has to have a show reel.
Yeah.
I mean, any actor. I mean, obviously some actors can't have show reels because they've just started out and things like that, but that's what we should all be aiming towards. Yeah. So theatre, television, still, that's other people's work, basically. Show reels and chatting to agents. Chatting to agents about their talent, when we're looking for someone.
Cool. And what's a typical day for you?
No.
No such thing?
No such thing, no. I mean, it's the same as anybody else that's freelancer. Sometimes you're incredibly busy. Sometimes you're not, sometimes. I can tell you that it's slightly different now because we're in the room less and we're on casting by self-tape more.
Right. How is that? Do you think that you see actors in a better way, or do you prefer it, or...?
So self-tape has its use because obviously transatlantic, when actors in a different country, there's a lot of collaborations here now, so there's a lot of occasions where people from another country will be casting, I don't know, English people for when they come over and film and things like that, so it's very useful, or vice versa, so that's very useful. Where it's not very useful is when it just replaces the casting room, because it's easier and more time efficient, because obviously sitting in a room with someone, you're always going to, the 3D person, you're always going to get more of a sense, more of a conversation with them going than actually just giving them a direction and watching them, midnight or how long,
Yeah.
So it's hard, and I think the ideal thing is sometimes people want to do first rounds by self-tape, but hopefully by the time it's recall, it will be in a room.
Right.
That's the ideal.
Yeah.
It depends on the size of the project.
Okay, so I suppose more budget, you can have people come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have sort of like tricks to kind of relax actors to get the best out of them, or do you want to see what they do under pressure?
No, I don't want to see. I don't want to frighten them. I don't want to see what they do under pressure. I don't want to keep secrets and not tell them what the end of the film is.
Cool.
I don't want to do any of those things. And I think all of those things make a bad casting room. I think a casting room should be, for want of sounding, it should sort of be a creative, nice energy, creative space where, you're encouraging people, because I don't particularly have a need. I don't want to look bad. I want to do a good job. So I want a director to say, oh my God, I could have any one of those people.
Yeah.
Not frighten everybody. so I just don't see the sense in that. Now, if a director wants to work like that, then it's his casting room, or her casting room, sorry, it's their casting room. So that's up to them. I follow their lead. But I think the idea of making people nervous or frightening people is just nonsensical.
Yeah.
It's completely nonsensical.
Well, no, because you shut down, don't you?
Well, there's no point. And it's also not very nice.
It's true.
Yeah.
And have you ever been in a situation where you're casting for a film and people want somebody that you can just see is totally unsuitable?
So more than that, I sometimes casting for films where people want people who are never going to do it. And that's always slightly tricky, because you don't want to sound negative, but you do have to sort of inject some realism into the project sometimes. So sometimes if somebody says, oh, I don't know, we've got 500 quid and I want Colin Firth or whatever, I'll still try because that's what they want, but that they can be a bit sort of difficult, those situations. And do you mean about casting someone who I think's wrong?
Well, just if the director's got an absolute vision for something and you're thinking, oh, that just doesn't fit or that doesn't work.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I would probably want to have a conversation and say to him, why, ask him questions, or ask the director questions and say, why do you think that? And what I try to do would be get to the bottom of why they think that person is right. Why they think that person... This is what casting is, actually. Why they think... So if someone says to me, I want Saoirse Ronan, I'd say, OK, Saoirse Ronan in what film?
Right.
Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn. OK, so what is there about Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn, that character? Mm-hmm. What is it that connects to your casting? And then we can have a conversation. So you're understanding. Rather than just saying, I want that, I want that, I want that. It's to try and understand what they're seeing, rather than me just saying, no, they're wrong.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that.
So that's the sign of a good casting director.
I hope so.
So you teach a lot, you were mentioning before. What would you say are the most valuable lessons that you teach people?
Oh, that's a good one. I think you'd have to ask them. I think you'd have to ask... what do I think is important? I think I always begin and end the day with character. You have to understand your character, certainly writer-directors as well.
Yeah.
You can't say to a casting director... So for casting director, we're talking about sort of the people that drive the dramas, maybe the bigger parts, but it can be small parts as well. If I say, well, who is this person? So why are they doing this? You can't just say, well, I don't really know. Because you think, well, if you don't know, how am I meant to know? And if I don't know, how's the actor meant to know? And sometimes, obviously, an actor is not always on the page. Certainly in telly and serial drama, it's not always on. And sometimes that does just have to come in and breathe life into a very one-dimensional character, perhaps. But if we're talking about an ideal world, as a director or a writer, you need to understand what you want in terms of character.
Yep. Yeah, and because it comes from the top, doesn't it?
And not have those, oh, Janis, well, I've just had this great idea. What? I think she should be Or I think they should have red hair. And I go, why? Oh, I don't know. I just fancied that. It doesn't. No. There has to sort of be rhyme and reason to things rather than just having great ideas for no reason at all.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, people might argue with me and say that's wrong, but it does make our life quite... the more we can understand, then the easier it is to cast.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it's the same with the acting, isn't it? If you understand the character, you can play it. If you're just like, oh, well, I'm just that. And
that's completely right.
Yeah.
And so what it always comes down to is script and character. It's not like, oh, can you get a really great cast for me? Well, it's no, can you give me I can if your script's good. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Something I wanted to ask you about. There's a really great campaign at the moment. Nikki Clark is doing the Don't Cast Her Out.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard about it.
No.
So it's she's been saying in the industry, women 45 and over are being cast out, and there's been like some examples where there'll be like 60-year-old men playing the lead parts in these great big films, and all the females are at least 30 years younger than them. I mean, this has gone on for years, and they've just done an open letter about it. And then there's been a whole things. One I can think off the top of my head was in Doctor Who. There was a guy who's 55 and his mother was played by someone who is 60.
Yeah.
And I think
happens all the time.
Yeah. How's that going to change? Because what I've heard is people have written these characters older, and then they're told, well, if you want the money for it, they've got to be...
Well, like lots of things, it doesn't change with the casting director.
No.
It changes with the person. I mean, it changes with how we're thinking, what we're writing, what kind of projects we want, that we're interested in talking, what do we want to talk about.
Yeah.
It changes with all that, but it doesn't change with the casting director.
No, I know. Because that's why I was wondering with restrictions when you're trying to cast things, if people are saying, I want the mother to only be this much older.
Well, I've never actually done that. I've never cast something that's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And what would I do? Well, I suppose, I'd probably have the conversation and I hope that... But I'm sure, something like that, it's not something that they haven't thought about. No. So they don't need me to point out the fact that you can't have a child when you're 6, or for example. So that's they must have thought about that and made a decision on some basis. So obviously, we'd have a discussion about it, but I can't tell you whether I'd stamp my feet and go yes or no. I don't know. Basically, I'm employed by a production company. We don't have all the power that you think that we have.
So when casting for independent films, does that give you a little bit more freedom to actually...
No, not necessarily, because sometimes you're on your knees crying, begging agents to talk to you, because it's sort of giving with one hand, taking away with the other. Yeah. But does it give you more freedom in what? Creatively?
Being a bit more creative.
Again, it just depends who you're working with.
Yeah.
It depends whether you click with someone or how you click, or it's the same thing.
And how important do you think independent films are?
To the
industry, to the world?
Well, they're very important because that's the whole... because it's the up-and-coming talent, always. Well, not always, but Yeah. No, it is. It's really... They are so important. And festivals, do you get around to many film festivals? No, I don't. No, I don't. I cast films and then you take them to festivals. So why do you think they're important to...
I think film festivals, for what you were just saying there before, is so important because of the fact that it's getting... you're cutting your teeth, really, aren't you? You're learning your craft.
Yeah. And I think sometimes as well you can get outside the box a bit more. You don't have to be quite as... You might be able to be a bit more free or not as formulaic, perhaps, as, as conventional for want of a better word. So I don't try some ideas out. And things like, but I say that, but it's an expensive way to try ideas out. So
yes, But I mean, I suppose there's a lot. I mean, we get a lot of sort of like projects which would never be commercial, because they would never get funding, and they've managed to bring it in because of people going, right, well, I've got to support this.
Yeah, so it gives a place to people. It gives a place to artists. And so we've got there,
it's a platform.
Yeah, platform.
And how did you become a casting director?
How did I? Well, just through sort of a normal route, really. I started off. What was I doing? I was doing sort of basic admin for Thames TV.
Right.
I used to work in. I used to run a restaurant, and I was married to an actor at the time, so I never saw each other. So I thought, I know, I'll become a casting director. There was really no rhyme or reason to it at all. So I got a job doing admin, and I liked it. And then I ended up booking the extras, and then I ended up sort of cutting really my casting teeth with. In those days, a very well-known casting director called Marilyn Johnson, who died a couple of years ago. But she was, in those days, there was like not as many casting directors as they are now, and they really were the grand dames. They played hard and worked hard. I mean, in their, I didn't say that. That's what they said. So I used to work incredibly hard for her, and I learned everything. I mean, she was quite a hard taskmaster, and then after that, I then went and worked actually for commercial casting directors. So I got to do that side, and then I went out by myself.
Oh, brilliant!
But it was years. Before I did that. Yeah.
No, I can imagine that it takes a long time to learn it because it's.
To learn it.
Well, to learn the craft, because from what you're describing, being able to understand what a director wants and understand the role and find that person that fits it.
Yeah, and I think also it is really a big people job. I do think you had to be good with people, because you had to be good with whoever production are, the director and the producer, with the agents, and with the actor themselves. So sometimes you're the person that's sort of running around. No one really knows who you are because you don't come out of your office, but you do have to kind of have that sort of skill. And the other side, obviously, is money.
Yes.
Understand agreements and contracts.
Yeah, because there's some big legal stuff that goes on, isn't there?
I think there is now, because I think there's lots of NDAs on everything. And, I speak to my agent friends, and they said it's, very time consuming.
Yes, yeah. Right. So for our last bit, have you got 3 tips that you could give filmmakers?
3. Yes. Okay, so the first one would definitely, and we've just done this without a shadow of a doubt, is make sure that your script, don't send out to people, a script that you're not happy with.
Yeah.
Your script's got to be, if you're looking to attract cast, you have to kind of understand somebody's going to be reading this, and why do they want to do it? Well, they'll want to do it because they think, oh my God, I love the script and I love the role. So it's got to be a good script, or what you consider a good script. Character as well. Really well drawn characters. Not one-dimensional, good pretending characters kind of thing. 3 tips. Don't be lazy. If you can't find what you're looking for, then go out and keep looking.
Right.
So you don't end up saying, Janis, how old do you think this person is? Oh, I don't know, around 50. Do you think they look 80? No, they look 50. Yeah, but could they look... Don't do that. Don't do that, because as you said at the beginning, whoever said it, that person's quite big on the screen. So what you don't want to do is break the magic by people sort of stepping outside and going, ooh, they don't look like the right age. Yeah. That's 2. And what was the third one? I don't know.
What about a tip for someone who wants to be a casting director?
Don't. No. No, casting. No, I'd like to think of this and the third one. I mean, there's so many things that you have to, character, go out and get what you want. And I think probably don't be scared as well. Don't be scared of actors. Don't be scared of directing in your first casting session. Because actually you just need to remember that, whether it's an agent, whether it's an actor, or in your casting session, everybody's just people. It is just a conversation. There isn't you have to keep it professional. But it's not kind of, casting is like some mythological kind of magical thing. It's not. It's a conversation and you try and get the best out of people. Yeah?
Oh,
so
brilliant.
That's what I would say. Bring good energy into the room.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
So much.
It's
That's
a
just
pleasure.
like brilliant advice.
Cool.
I hope you've all got loads out of that. Thank you so much for
It's
being
a
here
pleasure.
today. So, ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Janis Jaffa. Thank you.